It was the kind of house you walked past without thinking. 2 stories. Brick exterior. Tidy lawn. Set back from the street like every other home on Hawthorne Lane. But what happened inside 27, Hawthorne Lane on a cold October night would leave a neighborhood frozen in fear, and a city questioning everything it thought it knew about one man and the people he loved. The call came in at 6:42 a.m. A neighbor, walking his dog, noticed the front door of the Harper residence was wide open. That was strange. The Harpers were private, quiet, routine. Nothing about them ever seemed out of place. But that morning, something was. The porch light was still on. The family car was parked in the driveway. And the door, just hanging there, ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry or never made it out at all. Before we dive in, take a second to subscribe. If you're drawn to true crime stories that go deeper, stories that don't just tell you what happened but make you feel the weight of why it matters, this is the place. Because sometimes, the quietest homes hold the loudest secrets. Now let's step back, just a few weeks before the murders, and meet the Harpers. To anyone who knew them, the Harpers were the kind of family you didn't think twice about, because everything looked just fine. Daniel Harper, 42, taught chemistry at Hawthorne High for nearly 15 years. Calm. Measured. A bit stiff, maybe, but well respected. The kind of teacher who wore a tie every day, even on field trips. Some teased that he was born middle-aged, but no one ever had anything bad to say about him. Melissa, 39, was the heartbeat of the home. She ran a small design business from her converted garage office and volunteered as the PTO vice president. Her Instagram was filled with bright photos of back-to-school breakfasts and Halloween crafts. It wasn't flashy, it was familiar. The kind of life most people aim for. Their daughter Chloe had just turned 13. She was quiet, thoughtful, a straight-A student who played cello in the school orchestra. And Caleb, only 9, was all energy, soccer practice, video games, a missing front tooth in his most recent school photo. By all accounts, they were just a normal family. There were no police reports. No custody battles. No calls to child protective services. No debts. No enemies. Even among friends, the Harpers were never the center of gossip. They were the neighbors you trusted with your spare key. But sometimes, the most tragic stories don't come with warning signs. They come with a knock on the door. Or a phone call just after dawn. And on October 12 that call came. The 911 dispatch came in at 6:42 a.m., and within 10 minutes, 2 patrol cars had arrived at 27, Hawthorne Lane. Officers expected the usual, maybe a burglary, maybe someone left in a hurry. The early morning quiet on the street gave no indication of what was waiting inside. Body cam footage, later released in redacted form, shows the officers stepping cautiously through the front door, announcing their presence. Police. Anyone home? No answer. The house smelled faintly of coffee. A pot was still warm on the machine. 4 mugs sat on the kitchen counter, one half filled. A cereal box was open on the table. A school backpack rested by the stairs. In the living room, a pair of socks lay beside the couch. A remote pointed at a blank television screen. It looked lived in. Not looted. Not broken into. But something felt wrong. When the officers moved to the staircase, the tension shifted. Upstairs, the silence became something heavier, unnatural. It was in the master bedroom where they found Melissa Harper. She was lying in bed, still under the covers, eyes closed. At first glance, she looked asleep. But a small amount of dried blood behind her right ear told a different story. In the next bedroom, they found Chloe. Same position. 1 shot to the head. Then Caleb. 3 victims. All in bed. No signs of a struggle. No signs of forced entry. No blood spatter consistent with a chase or fight. Just quiet, clinical death. And then, nothing. The house was still. Daniel Harper was nowhere to be found. At 7:19 a.m., the home was officially declared a crime scene. Detectives from the Homicide Bureau were called in. Crime scene technicians followed. The street was blocked off, and the neighbors, by now gathering behind yellow tape, watched in stunned silence as stretchers were wheeled out under white sheets. The public didn't know their names yet. But word spread quickly. A triple homicide. A missing father. And a house locked from the inside. Detective Grace Ellison was one of the first to arrive. 20 years on the force. Known for her patience and instincts. And when she stepped into the Harper home, her first question was the one everyone else would ask for months to come. How does someone kill 3 people, in a locked house, and vanish? At 8 a.m. a forensics team began processing the scene. No forced entry. No broken windows. The back door was bolted from the inside. Every point of access locked. Neighbors reported nothing unusual, no shouting, no alarms, no gunshots. It was like the Harpers had simply gone to sleep. And never woke up. But one thing kept circling everyone's minds. Where was Daniel Harper? By mid-morning, his name and face were already flagged in law enforcement databases. An alert went out: missing person, possible suspect, possible victim. No one knew which yet. A bolo was issued for his car, a silver Toyota Camry. Helicopters scanned nearby wooded areas. Patrols were dispatched to local hotels and highways. His phone. Turned off. The news picked it up quickly: father missing after wife and 2 children found dead in family home. As detectives combed through the house, more questions than answers emerged. Daniel's wallet was still on the dresser. His clothes were untouched. His phone charger still plugged in beside the bed. But no phone. No car keys. No laptop. The only obvious item missing was Daniel himself. It didn't make sense. If this were a murder-suicide, why wasn't he among the dead? If he had fled after committing the murders, why leave everything behind? And if someone else had done it, how had they gotten in and out? The autopsies were completed within 48 hours. The results were chilling. Melissa Harper, shot once, behind the ear. Chloe, same. Caleb, same. All killed while asleep. No signs of defensive wounds. No hesitation shots. No bruising, no binding. Just clean, precise executions. The medical examiner estimated time of death to be around 2 a.m. The gun, however, was never found. That fact added weight to one theory building quietly behind the scenes, that Daniel Harper may not be a victim, but the killer. Still, detectives held back. There were no prior complaints. No history of violence. No drugs. No affairs. Daniel was, by all accounts, stable, mild-mannered, and deeply attached to his children. But then, as detectives began to dig into the last few weeks of the family's life, things started to crack. Melissa had confided in a friend, just once, about Daniel seeming off. Quiet. More distracted than usual. He'd been staying late at school. Coming home hours after the final bell. When she asked, he'd snap that he had grading to do or lab equipment to clean. Harmless enough on the surface, but out of character for someone who usually texted when he'd be late. She had also noticed something strange on their bank account. A withdrawal, $5,000 in cash, 3 days before the murders. Daniel claimed it was for a surprise vacation. But there were no reservations. No tickets. No bags packed. And no vacation ever mentioned again. More than that, detectives found recent searches on the family's shared desktop. How to wipe iPhone remotely. Locked room mystery real life. Gunshot residue clothes test. Lethal dosage sleeping pills. All accessed between midnight and 1:30 a.m. on the night of the murders. That changed everything. Daniel Harper was no longer a missing person. He was now the prime suspect in the murder of his wife and 2 children. By the end of day 3, the public was restless. News vans parked along Hawthorne Lane. Reporters were camped outside the police station. Online forums speculated wildly, had Daniel Harper faked his own death? Was he on the run? Or was he buried somewhere, a victim of a fourth, unknown assailant? Then, early on the morning of day 4, police got their break. A silver Toyota Camry was found abandoned near the edge of Miller's Bluff, a wooded area about 40 miles north. The engine was cold. Doors locked. Inside the car, detectives recovered Daniel's phone, battery dead, and a small, spiral notebook sitting on the passenger seat. On the first page, in Daniel's neat handwriting, were 4 chilling words. I didn't kill them. That notebook would become the centerpiece of the case, and the beginning of a much deeper mystery. Inside, Daniel had written over a dozen entries. Some were rambling. Others, eerily calm. He mentioned the feeling of being watched. That he had made a terrible mistake, but hadn't hurt anyone. He talked about something in the house and waking up to shadows. On the final page, dated the morning of the murders, he wrote, if they find this, they'll think I did it. I don't remember what happened. I heard something. I went downstairs. Everything is blurred after that. Please believe me. Police scoured the woods for days. Bloodhounds were brought in. Drones were flown overhead. But there was no sign of Daniel. No body. No footprints. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. But despite the missing body, investigators treated it like a fugitive case. They didn't buy the story. To the detectives, the notebook looked like a setup. A staged scene. A false trail. Daniel, they believed, had written it to cast doubt, then disappeared to start over somewhere else under a new identity. Warrants were issued. Interpol was contacted. Photos of Daniel were sent to airports and border control agencies. Meanwhile, forensic teams went deeper into the house. And that's when they found something that had been missed before. Behind the drywall in the basement laundry room, behind a false panel, was a small duffel bag. Inside, 2 burner phones, a second passport in Daniel's name issued years ago for a sabbatical to Europe, and more cash, wrapped in rubber bands. To police, this was confirmation. Daniel Harper had planned his escape. But there was still one big problem. No sightings. No confirmed movements. No digital activity. Nothing. 4 months. Then, 6 months to the day after the murders, someone logged into Daniel's email account from a coffee shop Wi-Fi network in upstate Vermont. The account was accessed for exactly 6 minutes. Just enough time to open one email, marked drafts, and then vanish. Security cameras from the cafe were scrubbed clean. The person who had accessed the account. Never identified. But the email draft left open told a different kind of story. One that, for the first time, made even the most seasoned investigators pause. Because it wasn't addressed to a lawyer. Or a co-conspirator. It was a message to Melissa. The subject line, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. And the body of the message. To Melissa Harper, unsent. Subject, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I don't know if this will ever reach you. I don't even know what's real anymore. I see your face every time I close my eyes. Chloe's laugh. Caleb humming that little tune while brushing his teeth. I remember every detail, but I can't trust what's in my head anymore. That night, something happened. I was awake. I was sure of it. But now I can't tell if it was a dream or something else. I heard a sound downstairs, like someone whispering, but the words weren't right. They didn't make sense. I thought it was the wind or the pipes. I remember getting out of bed, then, gaps. There's this blur, like static. And then I'm back in the kitchen, barefoot. My hands were shaking. The back door was locked. Nothing was broken. But I had the strangest feeling I wasn't alone. Melissa, if I did this, if somehow I lost time and I'm the reason. I swear to you, I never meant to. I would never hurt them. You know that. I loved you. All of you. I still do. If I had the strength, I'd turn myself in. But I don't even know what I'd be confessing to. All I know is I'm not supposed to be alive. Not without you. I'm so sorry. Daniel. The message was never sent. But forensic experts confirmed it had been typed in from a device logged in under Daniel's credentials. The cafe router pinged the laptop's MAC address, and it matched a computer model Daniel was known to own. Still, there was no surveillance footage. No receipts. And no confirmed DNA left behind. The email added layers, not answers. Some saw it as a guilty man's confession, masked in emotion. Others believed it was the cry of someone who had genuinely experienced dissociation or trauma-induced psychosis. But what the letter didn't explain was just as haunting. Why was the back door locked from the inside? Why were there no fingerprints from anyone other than the family? And why, despite 6 months of searching, had no one seen Daniel Harper? Then came a twist no one saw coming. It was nearly 9 months after the murders when a retired detective, now volunteering part-time with cold case units, requested to re-examine the Harper crime scene photos. Detective Richard Faulkner had a reputation for noticing details others missed. He wasn't convinced the story was as airtight as it looked. One photo in particular caught his attention. It showed the upstairs hallway. Nothing remarkable at first glance. But Faulkner zoomed in on a doorframe, noticing something odd about the trim around the attic access panel. The panel appeared to have been recently resealed, paint slightly lighter, edges smoother. Investigators had swept the attic early on, but only with a flashlight and thermal reader. No one had opened the panel itself. Faulkner insisted it be re-examined. When a new warrant was granted, a team returned to 27, Hawthorne Lane. With cameras rolling, they removed the attic panel and climbed into the space above the second floor. At first, just dust. Insulation. Standard crawlspace wiring. But then, in the farthest corner, wedged behind a wall of insulation, they found something. A backpack. A used blanket. Several empty water bottles. Protein bar wrappers. And a sealed envelope. Inside the envelope, photos. Of Melissa. Chloe. Caleb. They were recent, dated just weeks before the murders, and clearly taken without the family's knowledge. One showed Chloe at school, another of Melissa exiting the gym, and a third of Caleb riding his bike near the park. All were taken from a distance. Long lens. Hidden vantage points. Also in the envelope was a single handwritten note. He doesn't even know he's being followed. He sleeps through anything. The letter wasn't signed. But the back of the envelope had a smudged fingerprint. Within days, the lab matched it to a known individual, Eric Voss, age 42, a former patient at the psychiatric clinic where Daniel Harper used to work as a consultant counselor. Years earlier, Daniel had been part of a volunteer support program for discharged patients transitioning back to independent living. Eric Voss had been under that program for 6 months, before being expelled for repeated boundary violations and threats made toward staff. Records showed Daniel had reported Voss for stalking behavior after Voss became fixated on Melissa during a clinic event where Daniel had brought his family. Nothing was ever proven. Voss disappeared soon after, until now. With the new evidence in hand, a manhunt was launched. And just 6 days later, in a wooded area near Jackson County, police arrested a disheveled, gaunt man walking alone with a duffel bag and a rusted pistol. His name, Eric Voss. His confession would finally explain what really happened in the locked house on Hawthorne Lane. In the interrogation room, Eric Voss didn't resist. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He sat down, looked at the lead investigator, and said calmly, "I didn't mean to kill the kids." It was the first of many chilling admissions. Voss confessed to targeting the Harper family nearly a year before the murders. He believed Daniel had taken something from him, a chance at healing, at family, at a future. In his delusional mind, Melissa had been his only true connection, and Daniel was the wall between them. After he was discharged from the clinic and expelled from the support program, Voss began stalking the Harpers. He had been inside their house more than once, during the day, while they were out, using a copy of a stolen key. The attic became his base of observation. He'd listen to their routines. Watch them sleep. Take notes. When asked how he'd remained unseen, Voss smiled. "People never look up," he said. "I was the ghost in the ceiling. He never even heard me." Voss described the night of the murders in excruciating detail. He waited until Daniel fell asleep on the living room couch, then climbed down from the attic and crept through the house. He carried a knife and a hammer. The plan had been to confront Melissa, to take her back, but when the children woke up and began to scream, everything spiraled. He killed Chloe first. Then Caleb. Then Melissa, who tried to shield her son. He staged the scene to look like Daniel had been the one to commit the murders. Placing the hammer where it would appear Daniel had used it, wiping prints, locking the back door. He returned to the attic, waited until police arrived, and slipped out in the early hours before daylight. Daniel Harper's blood had been found on the handle of the hammer because Voss had used one of Daniel's discarded t-shirts to wipe it clean. The case had been built on the illusion of a locked room. But all along, the killer had been inside it, watching, waiting, hiding in the crawlspace above their heads. Daniel Harper was found alive 3 months later in a homeless shelter in Oregon. Disheveled, barely speaking, and diagnosed with complex trauma and dissociative fugue. He had no memory of the murders, only a heavy, unshakable grief that had driven him to vanish. When he learned the truth, that he hadn't murdered his family, he collapsed. The charges against Daniel were dropped. But nothing could bring Melissa, Chloe, or Caleb back. Voss was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The locked room mystery that once baffled detectives for over a year was now one of the most haunting solved cases in recent history. In true crime, the most terrifying stories aren't just about the violence. They're about the quiet monsters. The ones who walk among us, unnoticed. The ones who study, wait, and strike where it hurts the most. The Harper case reminds us that evil doesn't always come crashing through the front door. Sometimes, it's already inside, silently watching. And sometimes, the most suspicious man in the story, is innocent. If this story left you chilled, heartbroken, or stunned, don't forget to subscribe for more real and fictional true crime cases that keep you guessing until the very end. Leave a comment below, did you suspect Daniel was innocent all along? And hit that like button if you believe justice, no matter how late, still matters.